Mahoney, President of the Republican Women. Here you go, Deb.
Good afternoon. It's absolutely vital that you take it to Obama, that you hit him where it hurts. We have all these shady characters that have surrounded him. I am begging you, sir, I am begging you to take it to him. These words, spoken last fall at John McCain's rally in Waukesha, propelled James T. Harris into the national spotlight. Those of us fortunate enough to listen to him on WTMJ Saturdays and Sundays were not surprised by his plea at the rally. James brings a national conversation to his show. His insightful, clever depiction of current events has stormed the state. We're fortunate here today to hear him firsthand. I'm honored to call James a friend and privileged to introduce him today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James T. Harris.
First and foremost, I have to clear some things up before we get started. Man, did you say you raised 9 children? And grandchildren? You know what? I'm gonna have to, y'all.
Yes.
It's so powerful, man. I don't feel as if I have to go to church tomorrow. I want to thank you for that presentation. I want to thank you for the sobering words that you spoke this afternoon, because as I was listening to you, it just becomes obvious how much you're right, how much we have just sat by and watched all of these things happen to our country. And now we're at a point where very soon people are going to begin to wake up and say, what happened? How did we get here? And you laid it out. Thank you for that once again. Indeed. All right. Man, driving to La Crosse has some memory. Mr. Jim I, how you doing? Listen, I grew up watching your weather reports. Ladies and gentlemen. Before you leave, you need to see me because some words that I spoke at the Waukesha event a couple months ago have turned into a beautiful photograph. John Taylor, the Indiana Jones of the Republican Party. Driving to Wisconsin, or to La Crosse yesterday, I was speaking with my beautiful wife about this area. This is where her father used to live for years. He's in Milwaukee with us now. Both of our fathers are in that twilight of life, or dealing with Alzheimer's, dealing with all kinds of situations. But I was reminded of when we first started dating. And the first time I met my wife's father, Mr. Lee, we got into an argument that went for 4 hours. I sat down on the couch. First time I met the man, we got into a political argument because he is a staunch, dyed-in-the-wool, deep-down, ugly Democrat. He's also one of the smartest men I have ever met. And we got into this battle, and I'm telling you, he wiped me up and down. Because I wasn't prepared for that. I was, busy trying to woo this beautiful woman. I didn't come in knowing that I was supposed to have my Jesus Jedi powers on. So I got rolled. But the second time we fought to a standstill. And my now father-in-law, he was at the time, my girlfriend's father was so upset that he called my parents. He called my father on the phone and said, Randolph Harris. My father said, yes, it was Mr. Lee. This is your son's girlfriend's father. Yes, sir, how can I help you? I just want to know, how in the heck did you raise a black Republican? And my father said, I don't know. Talk to his mom. James Harris, a radio talk show host in Milwaukee. I've been on the radio for 3 years, but I have been in the Republican Party as far as voting Republican all of my adult life. My first time I voted letter was for Ronald Reagan in his second term. I remember where I was when I first heard that Ronald Reagan won with my best friend Billy Zoom, and we were in this store, the Bayshore, a Boston store, and we heard, and we looked at each other and we said, it's the end of the world, it's Armageddon. And 4 years later, here I am voting for the great Satan, Ronald Reagan. But for those of you who question my conservative principles, my credentials, I want you to know that my daughter's name, my youngest child's name, Reagan, R-E-A-G-A-N. When I first voted for him, though, it was one of these votes that came because it was more intellectual. I had two roommates that really challenged me. They were asking me questions about why I was voting the way I did, because I grew up in a Democrat household. My father was a Democrat. I was born a Democrat. I was dying a Democrat. My father was a union Democrat. So when I went away to college and I came home and they found out that I had voted Republican, all hell broke loose again. And my father asked me why. Why did you do this? And I had to be honest with you, because I was asked questions about life. I was asked questions about taxation, about fairness, that I just had no answers for. So it was a head vote, but my heart wasn't in it. My heart didn't get in it until I started to read up on why I thought the way that I did. Why I believe, what was so special, what was so different, what was so vital about conservatism. The first major work I read was The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek. I read the works of Russell Kirk. I read the National Review. And as I started to read these these books that defended the ideology, I started to, understand how to battle. And then it was a gift. One day I was driving back from West Bend. My first teaching job was up in West Bend, and I turned on the radio and I heard the last 5 minutes of Rush Limbaugh. I said, who is this man? And I thought there was another hour coming on, but instead it was Mark Belling. And I'm like, who is this man? I was instantly hooked. I was introduced to Charlie Sykes through Mark Belling's show. I was introduced to Jeff Wagner through Mark Belling's show. So for years, I used to call into the radio show, and I was known as James from Sherman Park. Yep. And I was going up against Earl from Sherman Park. When Earl called in, I called in after him. Earl was crazy. I remember I called into one Jeff Wagner show, and the subject was on the crocodile hunter when he died. They were asking, should they, because they had it on video, should they show how he died to the rest of the world? Should they show this video? And I called and said, yeah, they ought to show it, so that people should understand that you shouldn't play with wild animals. And they said, what's your name? I said, James T. Harris, James from Sherman Park. And the producer of the show said, James T. Harris, we've been trying to reach you. We're trying to get hold of you. I went, why? And he said, well, can we have your number? So I gave him my number. 2 years later, they called back and they said, man, you call me so much, we feel as though we know you. I said, okay. And he said, well, we were wondering, we think you have a voice that the community needs to hear. We were wondering if you would be interested in co-hosting a couple of shows with us. And I'll be honest with you, if it works out, it could turn into something bigger. I said, is this a joke? Is this Billy? Billy, is this you, Billy? No, I sat in for 7 times, and I had an opportunity to put me on Sunday nights, and it started to grow from there. And a lot of you were with me for the very first couple of weeks, so I was stumbling and bumbling, and had the notes in front of me, it was shaking, and they were holding my hand. The first time I was on, I was following the Bucks game. Bucks went to overtime. So I was finally on. I just got to the first topic, and I was going, ladies and gentlemen, about commercial break, and we'll be right back. And the producer's like, no, the show's over. Already? This is on the air. The show's over already? Whatever you're doing, good night. So you bring that up to me. I want to thank you for being there and staying there. And of course, as we just mentioned, the whole my McCain moment is when they went national. Actually, it went viral, it went worldwide. That McCain moment. That was a very intense period for my family, and I want to thank you. You know what? Let me just sidebar. All of this crazy stuff was said about the good people in Walking Shaw. I just want to say that was just a lie. A lie. All of the stuff that was said about the town hall meetings. I was there. And I was absolutely just flabbergasted all of the negative stuff that was said about you people. And the thing that really